and welcome to this. In this course, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to optimize your permalinks and slugs in WordPress for SEO and user experience. So I'll start by explaining the difference between permalinks, URLs and slugs, and I'll use a few examples of blog posts and URLs within my site to show you. I'll then explain why it's important to optimize your permalinks and slugs for SEO and also for user experience. Having done that, I'll demonstrate how you can change the permalink settings in your site so you have pretty permalinks, and how you can edit the slugs for your posts and your categories so that they're optimized for SEO and user experience. Watch this course and learn everything you need to know about WordPress permalinks. I'm going to show you the difference between a permalink, a slug and a URL. So the permalink is a term used in WordPress to refer to the unique link for each post or page or piece of content of a custom post type in your site. And in your theme, you'll find that this function here, the permalink, is used in the loop to refer to the link to an individual post. So that's used in the loop on an archive page or on the home page or the main blog page. And what that function does is output the unique link to that post so that the user can then click on it. Now, it doesn't matter how you have your permalinks set up and what your URLs are looking like, this will always work because it uses the unique ID of the post to fetch that permalink and to display it correctly as it's currently configured in your WordPress site. So that's what a permalink is. And you can configure the way your permalinks are set up in WordPress via this permalink settings page, which I'll show you in a bit more detail. We've then got the URL. So here's a post on my site that I'm going to be demonstrating within this course. The URL consists of two things. First is the domain name, which here is compasshosting.co.uk/demo, because this site is actually on a subdomain of my main Compass hosting domain. And then this part, the very last part of the URL, is what's called the slug. And the slug is unique to the individual post. So you can see here that this slug is based on the title, and WordPress will automatically generate that slug based on the title that you input for the post. So the URL consists of the domain name and the slug, but it will also sometimes consist of something else in between. So there might be something like the name of the category or blog or something like that, and we'll see that as we go through the course. So we've got three terms. We've got the permalink, which is the unique link to an individual post or page. We've got the URL, which is the full URL. If I click on that, you get the whole thing. And that is what you would use if you're sharing that post via social media or in an email, for example. And then we've got the slug, which is the very last part of the URL, which is unique to the individual post or page. So let's take a look at it in another one of my sites, which uses a slightly more straightforward domain name. This is learnwp.net. So this is the URL and the domain name because we're on the home page. But if we go into the blog, you can see we've got blog here as the slug, because that is for this specific page that I've created to hold my blog posts. And then if I go into one of those posts, my URL consists of three things: the domain name, the category that this post is in, and then quick guide to activating WordPress multi-site, which is the slug for this individual post. And in this site, I've configured my permalinks to include the category before the name of the post. And you can do that if you want to, or you can choose to have nothing there, so it would just be learnwp.net/quick guide to activating WordPress multi-site, or you could have something like blog, and you could use that for all of the posts, not just ones in a specific category. So if I go to another category, we can see here that I've got learnwp.net/topics and then ultimate, which is the slug. And ultimate is the name of my category, but I could edit that if I wanted to for my category. So I've chosen to have topics here instead of category, which is the default. And again, I'll show you that as we work through the course. And if I look at one of the posts in here, it's learnwp.net/ultimate/advanced WordPress for professionals. So I've chosen to include these words because they'll help my SEO and my user experience. You might choose not to use them so that you can have shorter URLs, because for UX, short URLs are generally good. And in the next part of the course, I'll show you exactly why optimizing your permalinks in WordPress is good for your search engine optimization and your user experience. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you why it's important to optimize your permalinks both for search engine optimization and for user experience. So optimizing your permalinks for SEO will help search engines to understand better what's in your posts. So if we take a look at this post here, we've got social media time suck when you should be working or invaluable tool for marketing, because WordPress has automatically generated a slug based on our title. Now, that's got some SEO benefits. It's got social media and it's got marketing, but it might be possible to optimize it, and we'll do that during the course. But the reason that it's good to have words that are meaningful and that people are likely to search for in your slugs is that it adds to the metadata that Google and other search engines have about your post, so that they can better understand what the content of that post is and therefore put you higher in the search engine rankings. So if we have a look at this example from my other site, Advanced WordPress for Professionals. That's really good for SEO because we've got Advanced WordPress and we've got Professionals, and that's the kind of thing somebody might search for if they're looking for some advanced WordPress content. I've also included my category names in here. I've got Ultimate, I've got Essentials and Basics and Applications. And I've chosen to include those because particularly when it comes to Essentials and Applications, people might be searching for those. So this article by Yoast explains what permalinks are and how they benefit your SEO. And the main thing is to ensure that you use permalinks that include real words and not numbers and symbols and that kind of thing, and that also include the keywords that you want to optimize your posts for so that they get better search engine rankings. So here's an example. I've Googled slugs and UX because I want to know about user experience for slugs. And here I've got this post from Tuts Plus. What is a slug in WordPress? So when I go to that, I can see that it's about slugs and that the word slug is in the title. Now, it already ranks very highly when I Google slugs in UX because of the fact that there's an H2 element in here called slugs in UX. So that gives Google a really, really strong signal that slugs in UX is an important topic in this post. But I could boost it even more maybe by calling this what is a slug or slugs SEO UX WordPress, which might be a little bit too much in terms of keyword stuffing, but it would certainly tell Google what the topics are of this particular post. So that's SEO. You also need to optimize your slugs and your permalinks for user experience. And in this article here, Jacob Nielsen, who's an expert on user experience on websites, discusses why URLs are particularly important for user experience. And you can see that his URL up here has a very short slug at the end, URL as UI. Now that is optimized for SEO because we've got URL and UI, but it's also optimized for user experience because it's short and it's clear. If I wanted to share this article with you, I could read out the URL for that article and tell it to you in full, and you could hopefully remember it. Now it is a little bit long with articles in here, but again, that helps search engines and people know that this is an article. So having URLs that are short and that are meaningful and that are easy to remember are particularly good for user experience, because that means that people can tell them to each other, that members of your team can tell potential clients, for example. So if you have a services page on your website, calling it mydomain.com/services will be incredibly easy to remember and to tell people. So those are the two forms of optimization that you need to do for your permalinks and your slugs in WordPress. I'm going to show you how to configure the permalink settings in your WordPress site so that you get pretty permalinks that are good for SEO and user experience. So to configure the permalink settings in WordPress, you go to Settings and then Permalinks in your admin screens. And depending on how your WordPress site has been set up and installed, you might find that the default is plain, which looks like this. And this $p=123 at the end is actually a query string. This is exactly the code that's run when the database is queried to get a post with this ID of 123. So if I save that as the setting for my permalinks, and then I view a post, you can see that we've got p=4654 for this post. And don't forget that demo is part of the domain name for this particular demo site. So I don't know about you, but I don't think that's very SEO or user friendly. Users aren't going to remember that, especially with that question mark and the equals in there, and search engines are going to have nothing useful they can do with that. Nobody in the world is going to be searching for 4654 when they're looking for something about social media. So let's try a different setting, the day and name. So I'll go back into my post screen, view that post. So now you can see we've got the slug at the end, which is the name of the post, and then before it we've got the year, the month and the date that it was posted on, which might be useful if you think people are searching on your site or searching for content on your site where the date is important. So if this information is very specific to the year on which you posted it, you might want to include the date. But to be honest, I think it's very unlikely they're going to need the actual date, in which case you're probably better off with month and name. And if I change that, you can see the second 09 has gone. So this just tells me the year and the month in which it was posted. So if your content is very time specific, you might find there are SEO benefits to this, but there's not a lot of benefit in terms of user experience because you're creating a longer URL that's going to be harder for people to use. So let's try another option. Here's the numeric option. I'll save that and then I'll go back into my posts list and view the post. The reason I can't refresh it every time is because that URL is changing, I get a 404 error. So here we've got archives/post ID. Might be okay for user experience. It's short, you could use it for short links for Twitter and so forth, but to be honest, you can do that with URL shorteners. And again, this gives you nothing for SEO. There's nothing in this URL that tells you anything about what's in the post or helps the search engine to find you. And it's added another section, archives, which is not very good for user experience. So let's move on to another option, post name. And again, I'll go back to my post listing screen and I'll view it. So now we've just got the domain of the site, which remember includes that demo bit, and then the slug. So it's not strictly the post name, it's actually the slug. And we can edit that. If I edit the post, we can edit that, which we will do later on, in the settings for the specific post. So that's a much prettier option and a much better option. Let me go back and view the post. A much better option for both SEO and to some extent user experience. So for SEO, we've got the words that I've used in this title, which might not be keywords, but social media, working and marketing are in there. And they might be keywords that I'm targeting with this specific post. So a search engine is going to have more of a clue of what this post is about by its URL. However, for user experience purposes, it's very, very long and not all that user friendly. So we'll need to edit that later on in the course. Going back to the permalink settings, if you wanted to, you could add an additional element to the custom structure. So I'm going to add blog. And then I'll save that, go back to my post listing screen, keep going, and then I'll view it. So here we've got the domain name and then /blog, and then social media time suck when you should be working on invaluable tool for marketing. Now, I don't think that blog adds a huge amount, but if you had a news site and you want to make it crystal clear that this is a news site, you might add news in there. So if you have a term that is very important for SEO or user experience purposes on your site, you could add that to your permalinks using this setting here. I'm going to go back to just using post name and save that. So I'll go back and view my post, and you can see that I've got this slug here. So that's how you configure the permalink settings for individual posts. The other thing you can do is you can change the base for your categories. So if I go into the categories screen in my site, you can see I've got a number of categories here, some of which, but not all of which, have got blog posts added to them. So let's take a look at what I could do with the permalinks for category archives. So if I then go into my category screen and I view an archive for one of these categories, let's take productivity. You can see it's got category/productivity. Again, that might be important if, for example, you also have static pages with similar names to your categories in order to avoid any confusion, or if you want or if maybe you want to use a word other than category that might be optimized for your SEO. So if I come down to categories here, so maybe learn if you've got a learning site. So now it says /learn/productivity. Now that could be important for you if you want to differentiate between your different categories, but I would warn against using it if you've got long category names, because it will make your URLs very long in total, which is not so good for user experience. For user experience, we need short, memorable URLs that use real words that make sense. So that's an option for your categories, and you can do the same for your tags if you want. So you could add the word tag for your tag bases. So if I leave this blank, it'll still say category. So it's changed back from learn to category, because that's the default. So I might want to use topic instead. And there you are, we can see topic productivity. So that's another way that you can optimize the way that the whole permalink, the whole URL works. You can add this section here, topic, if you think that's going to be particularly important for SEO in particular. Not so much user experience, but you might find that the word topic is something that you're targeting more squarely than the word category. So that's how you configure the permalink settings in your site. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you how to optimize your slugs for SEO and UX. So we've already looked at how you optimize your permalink settings, so we know we've got pretty permalinks set up on the site. But now let's take a look at the specific slugs and how you can change them. So here is my post, social media, time suck when you should be working, or invaluable tool for marketing. And WordPress has automatically generated a massive long slug with that in. Now that's quite long. When we have a look at the post, you can see that we end up with a really long URL that doesn't even fit in the field up here. So let's change that. Now, the core of this post is social media and marketing. So I could simply get rid of all that and call it social media marketing. And you can see that I edit it in the permalink section here. You can also edit it if you click on the title. And here you can see that you can edit it via this field here. So we'll save that. I'm going to update the post. I'm going to view the post again. I didn't refresh the post that I had before because the URL's changed. So now that's much easier. I could say to somebody, my post is at this URL. I probably wouldn't have compasshosting.co.uk/demo, but I might have mysite.com/social media marketing. And if you wanted to, you could take out the hyphens. But I don't know about you, I think that makes it look a bit weird because we've got one massive great word. It also won't help SEO because Google doesn't recognise social media marketing, or one word, as a word, but it definitely recognises social media and marketing as 3 words. So those are optimised for SEO because they've got our keywords that our post is about and that we'll be targeting for SEO, and that it's also optimised for user experience because it's nice and short and easy to remember. Now the other thing you can do is you can optimize your category slugs. So when you're on an archive page for a category, you can change the slug for each of your categories. And you can also do this for tags and custom taxonomies. So I've got a bunch of categories here, which I've added to my site. And WordPress has automatically generated slugs for some of these categories. So for example, here you can see we've got a category of publishing and marketing. And WordPress has generated publishing and marketing. That would actually probably be publishing marketing that would be auto-generated because there's a ampersand here instead of an and. But when I first set this up, I called it publishing and marketing, and then I changed it for brevity. So this is quite long. So if I view the archive page for that category, we've got our domain name and then topic and then publishing and marketing. What if I just wanted to optimize one of those two words? I could either edit that by opening it in its own screen and change it to publishing. And that's updated. I go back to categories. The other alternative I've got is to use quick edit here. And that's easily the quickest way to edit my category slugs. So I've updated that. And then if I view it, you can see it's publishing as the topic. So again, nice and easy to remember for user experience. Now bear in mind that sometimes balancing SEO and UX might not always be easy here, because I might prefer to keep it as publishing and marketing because I want to optimize both of those for SEO, but having just one of those words is better for UX. So you'll obviously have to make the decision depending on the needs of your site. So I can also then see, you can also see how I've optimized this one already. So that would have automatically generated websites, newsletters, and I've edited the slug so it's just websites. So if I view that, we can see that it's topic/websites. So the slug for your categories, your tags and any custom taxonomies, and the slugs for your posts, pages and any custom post types can all be edited so that you can optimize them for SEO and UX. Now there is one danger in editing those slugs and in editing permalinks as well, and that's the fact that if this is an old post or pre-existing post, not one that I'm creating right now, I might have shared that old URL, social media times up when you should be working on a valuable tool for marketing. What a mouthful. I could have shared that somewhere on social media, or a visitor to my blog might have come along, seen it, liked it and shared it by email with one of their contacts. And when somebody then clicks on that link, it won't work, because the slug having changed means that that URL won't work anymore because it no longer exists in my site. So if you do edit the URLs for existing posts that are already on your site, it's a good idea to set up a redirection from the old URL to the new one, and you can install a redirection plugin to do that in your site. You also might want to do redirect. It's also a good idea to do redirection if you change the permalink settings, and then you can change. That will be a little bit more complicated because you'll have to do some wildcard redirection because you'll have a lot of posts potentially with changes. Or alternatively, it might not be possible to do it. So for example, if we go into our permalink settings and you were to change from plain to post name, setting up a redirect for that actually would work, because the plain one is always going to work because it uses the query string. But if you were going to use month and name originally, if you started with that and you changed that to post name, that might cause problems, and it would be very difficult to redirect because you'd have to redirect everything with this in it. So if you do change your permalink settings, it's a very good idea to do it as soon as you set up your site, or as soon as possible after you set up your site. And if you change your slugs for your posts, it's also a very good idea to do it when you create the post and you first publish it. That's not to say you can't do it later on, but if you do change the slug for a post later on, it's a good idea to set up a redirection so that anybody trying to visit it using the old URL will still be able to access that content. So that's how you optimize the slugs for your posts and your categories for SEO and user experience. In this part of the course, I'm going to wrap up and summarise what you've learned as you followed along with this course. So this course aimed to teach you everything you need to know to understand WordPress permalinks and to optimise them both for search engine optimisation and for user experience. So we started off by identifying what permalinks are and looking at the difference between a permalink, a slug and a URL. And this helped understand why you optimise each of those different sections and what the role of each of them is. We then moved on to looking at why it's important to optimise your slugs and URLs. So we looked at SEO for permalinks and URLs and how they can help you get better search engine rankings. And then we examined why user experience can be impacted by your URLs and why it's important to have short, meaningful URLs so that people can remember them. We then went on to look at how you can change the permalink settings in your site. So we used the permalink settings screen to look at the different kind of settings that you have for permalinks and to activate the one that's the most SEO and UX friendly, which is pretty permalinks. And here we've just used post names. And we also looked at how you can change the category base and tag base, and we changed category, which is the default, to topic. Having looked at the permalink settings and set up pretty permalinks, the next step is to optimise your slugs. And I showed you how to optimise the slug for an individual blog post to make it shorter and better for SEO and user experience. And we also looked at how you can optimise the category slugs, and you can change from the automatically generated ones to shorter category slugs of your choice, which again target your keywords. So we then ended up with a category topic of websites, where it would have been websites and newsletters to start with. Finally, we examined the potential impacts of changing your slugs and even your permalink settings on a site that's been in existence for a while and on posts which aren't new, and looked at why you should set up redirection in your site for any posts where you change the slug once that post might have been shared by people outside your site. And I discussed how important it is to optimise your slugs when you first publish your site. So now you've watched this course, you should have a better understanding of slugs and permalinks in WordPress, why you should optimise them for SEO and UX, and exactly how to do it. I hope you found this course useful. Thanks for watching.